Conservative sees potential danger in the leadership race.
It does pose the risk of causing brand damage for the Conservative Party.
To get her family to Canada, a refugee mother keeps a big secret. Plus, we get insight into a group that patrols Muslim neighborhoods here in Canada.
They are legitimately, to their minds, very afraid of the Muslim community coming and altering their society.
After declaring a, quote, running war with the media, after blasting a U.S. federal court that today refused to reinstate its controversial travel ban, U.S. President Donald Trump is running out of democratic institutions to feud with. Congress is still on his side, but today you wouldn't know it. Paul Hunter has the story from Washington.
With who knows how many people getting set to watch the Super Bowl, Donald Trump knew he'd have a huge TV audience for his pre-taped, pre-game interview with Fox News. And given the past few months, he'd no doubt guess he'd get a question on Vladimir Putin. He did.
I say it's better to get along with Russia than not. Will I get along with him? I have no idea.
He's a killer, though. Putin's a killer.
A lot of killers. We got a lot of killers. Why, you think our country's so innocent?
No sooner was that last part made public than even Trump's fellow Republicans shot back. Ohio Governor John Kasich tweeted, "America's been a beacon of light and freedom. There is no equivalence with the brutal regime of Vladimir Putin." Added the Senate Majority Leader,
I'm not going to critique the president's every utterance, but I do think America is exceptional. America is different. We don't operate in any way the way the Russians do.
Meanwhile, the divide on that other raging issue was underlined again today in New York with protesters against USA, USA, and in favor of Donald Trump's restrictions on travelers from certain Muslim countries. It played out as well in airports and courtrooms in an intensifying legal battle, with the bottom line that for now, refugees and others are allowed in. After a federal judge ruled against the ban Friday, affirmed by another court overnight. Trump tweeted today, if something bad happens as a result, blame the judge. Government lawyers will push to reinstate the restrictions tomorrow.
We're very confident that we're going to prevail. We'll accomplish the stay, and we'll win the case on the merits.
All of that after a combative week between reporters and Trump Press Secretary Sean Spicer, leading late-night comedians to take him on with, yes, that's actress Melissa McCarthy, as Spicer, deeming it a rocky start for him and the press.
When I say rocky start, I mean it in the sense of Rocky the movie, because I came out here to punch you in the face, and also I don't talk so good.
As for the travel restrictions, the White House says it'll use all legal means in the push to get them back in place. It's Trump's first such battle as president, and it could go to the Supreme Court. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
If this case does go to the U.S. Supreme Court, it has just 8 members right now, and it could split 4-4. In the event of a tie, the lower court ruling would stand, meaning the travel ban would be lifted. Thanks to the on-again, off-again U.S. travel ban, clouds of uncertainty hang over airports everywhere. In Canada, an army of legal volunteers have come to the aid of targeted travelers who glance up at the departure boards, down to their passports, and wonder what they're flying into. Natalie Collada has that story.
Donald Trump's travel ban has been halted, at least temporarily. But at airports across Canada this weekend, for some, there is confusion.
It has been like different news every different hour.
And anxiety.
Sorry to say, I'm not white, so I thought they would stop me, and I was worried, really worried. So I hope I will be safe.
To make sure, teams of volunteer lawyers fanned out to airports in Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa.
We have hundreds of lawyers who signed up to take shifts in these airports over the next few days.
A refugee legal rights group is organizing the effort and says lawyers are there to help travelers throughout their journeys.
We're in contact with teams that are on the ground in various American airports so we can alert people traveling from here to there of the fact that there is an arrival coming so that they can help with any challenges that exist on the arrival side.
Nobody said to me no. Very good.
Around the world, some who were denied entry into the U.S. because of the executive order are scrambling to get in while they can.
We are very excited. We are very happy that finally we have been cleared. We are allowed to enter the United States.
But not everyone was. Yesterday, the Canadian legal team said there were still some issues.
There's been a few people been turned away. It's kind of slowed down now. I believe there was one person this morning only.
The team is also gathering evidence for their American counterparts to fight the ban.
Where there are issues with the travel, to make sure that that's properly documented and can form part of ongoing challenges to these executive orders.
The group says its efforts won't be confined to airports. If needed, they're ready and willing to go to land border crossings as well. Natalie Collada, CBC News, Toronto.
Arguments about Donald Trump are reaching into all kinds of arenas. And tonight, the political football is football. Millions are watching the Super Bowl. And those looking to make a point knew that. Alana Cole has our story.
This land is your land. This land is my land.
There's no question Lady Gaga knows how to make a statement. Tonight, she did just that.
With liberty and justice for all.
During her Super Bowl halftime performance, Gaga didn't mention President Donald Trump, but started with her vision of a United States. This is one of the biggest and flashiest events of the year. Millions of people watch. But after a divisive election, it's no surprise politics are bleeding into the game. Today in Houston, even before the New England Patriots and Atlanta Falcons hit the field, hundreds of protesters took to the streets to take on President Donald Trump and his policies.
I'm marching for refugees. I'm marching for women's rights. I'm marching because the president does not represent the majority of the population of the country.
I think you're only going to see the protests grow and grow and grow. This country is going to fight back against the anti-Muslim, racist rhetoric and actions of Donald Trump's administration.
I was in the plane and they handed me a letter, and it was from Coach Belichick.
Even Trump's connections to the Patriots, its coach Bill Belichick, star quarterback Tom Brady, and owner Robert Kraft have been noted.
Welcome to America. We don't want to hear.
And then there's the commercials. Budweiser's Super Bowl ad raised questions about whether the company was hitting at Trump, telling the story of a co-founder's path from Germany to the U.S.
They weren't actually intending to make a political statement, but of course, with the current climate we're in and the discussion around immigration, you can't help but look at it otherwise.
This year, the divide may be stronger off the field than on it. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Houston, Chicago, and New York City all saw vandalism this weekend with Nazi symbols. But look at how some New Yorkers reacted. On the subway, swastikas and hateful messages against Jewish people were scrawled in marker. A witness described the mood as silent and uncomfortable. But soon, someone suggested hand sanitizer could remove marker. So passengers got to work wiping away the hate speech. Coming up on our Sunday Talk, some media seem to spread suspicion of Muslims. Can the messages be controlled? And should they be? Plus, the incredible story of a Syrian refugee who gave birth in Fort McMurray. She actually went into labor before arriving in Canada. Air Canada says a flight from Brussels to Montreal was forced to abort takeoff yesterday after sustaining damage to its wheels. A passenger sent us these photos of a maintenance crew underneath the Airbus A330 after the incident. They show the tires removed. An Air Canada statement said all 179 passengers were safely deplaned and the aircraft is being inspected and repaired. The battle for the future of the Conservative Party is being fought in Halifax this weekend.
We have a candidate
who thinks he's Rambo. We don't beat the celebrity-in-chief with another celebrity-in-chief.
I want people back, and it's already working. Kevin is with us today.
Those were some of the sharp jabs yesterday, many of them aimed at Kevin O'Leary, who made his debate debut. But it's a crowded field. Catherine Cullen has more.
I can tell you that we're going to take a lot of heat for these ideas and things that we do.
Kelly Leach had to know that campaigning on screening the values of new arrivals to Canada would be divisive. The chorus now condemning that approach includes one of the founders of the modern Conservative Party.
Who makes that decision? And what is that bar going to be? And how could possibly somebody coming from a country that has no understanding of what it means to be a Canadian meet that criteria?
Peter MacKay warned some of the heated rhetoric of this race could have consequences.
It does pose the risk of causing brand damage for the Conservative Party.
Leach's campaign has been struggling in recent weeks with renewed criticism and the resignation of her campaign manager, but she insists she's undeterred.
Look, if other candidates don't agree with me on that, that's perfectly fine because the majority of Canadians are with me.
Leach aside, in this race there are two candidates getting more attention and barbs from their opponents than all the others, both promising to shake up the party in very different ways. There's the bombastic showman, latecomer to the race, Kevin O'Leary. He uses his celebrity to his advantage. Those who want a picture are quickly asked to sign up for his campaign. He seems unconcerned by things that would make other politicians cringe. CBC News reported yesterday, on the very first week of his campaign, O'Leary spent most of his time in the United States.
You know, I'm actually a household name in the United States, as you know, and because of what's happening in trade and immigration, I've become a spokesperson for Canada on American networks.
Former Cabinet Minister Maxime Bernier has taken a markedly different approach, trying to win over converts one conversation at a time.
I want a small crowd. I want to be able to contact with them, to be able to exchange and answering their question. And I think that's very useful for me and for them also.
The self-described libertarian has also been churning out policy announcements for months.
We don't need to change the Canada Health Act.
Now, a reality TV star or a libertarian would represent a real shift for the party that Stephen Harper led. But there are other serious contenders who don't offer such dramatic change, like Lisa Raitt, Erin O'Toole, or Andrew Scheer. But combining that ranked ballot voting with the fact that every riding has an equal say means that nobody really knows who's going to win on May 27th. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Halifax.
1 week after the Quebec City shootings, today was a day of tribute and farewells. In Montreal, a final funeral for one of the victims. While in Quebec City, hundreds gathered with a message. Emily Brass has more.
In Quebec City, about 700 people marched to the National Assembly, chanting, "We are all Québécois, we're all Canadians." The march was organized by the mosque where the shooting took place. It reopened this weekend and welcomed members of the public. Meanwhile, in Montreal, hundreds packed into a mosque to pay their respects. So many, the crowd spilled out into the corridor. Mamadou Tanou-Barry was a husband and father of two. Family and friends came from Quebec City by the busload to comfort one another and say goodbye. I keep thinking of the children, says this mourner, 17 orphans left behind. Family friend Kadiatou Ba knew Barry back in Guinea before either of them came to Canada.
Mamadou Tanou is a great friend of me. It's like my brother. I suggested to him to immigrate to Canada.
Friends say Barry supported not just his family in Quebec City, but helped out 5 relatives in Guinea, 10 people in all. They say he was planning to launch a project to install a pump to bring drinking water to his village in Guinea. Ba says he will be missed, but she hopes his death serves a higher purpose.
Helping people probably understanding better what Islamic religion is.
The uncle of another victim, Ibrahim Barry, says he hopes the tragedy helps bring unity.
Islam is no like fighting or as people, some people
think about Islam. Islam is a peace.
Emily Brass, CBC News, Montreal.
To France now, where far-right leader Marine Le Pen held a rally to kick off her presidential campaign. With just 3 months before voting, polls show her gaining momentum. Thousands attended today's event. Le Pen railed against economic globalization, immigration, and Islamic fundamentalism. She also praised both Donald Trump and Brexit. Support for her ultra-conservative National Front Party has surged in recent weeks.
The government took back the ordinance, but they are very bad people.
A victory for hundreds of thousands of protesters in Romania. After nearly a week of crowds like this, the government is backing down on a controversial executive order. It would have decriminalized some lesser crimes of corruption and granted pardons to convicted officials. Tonight, there's good news and bad news about Canada's weather. The good news, winter is more than half over. The bad news, it's still winter. The CBC's Bal Brack has our story.
This is hardly the usual mode of transportation in BC's Lower Mainland, but snowmobiles seem appropriate today in Vancouver neighborhoods and in the Fraser Valley. Nearly 60 centimeters of snow has fallen since Friday.
I feel like we've been moved up north somewhere. Doesn't seem real. This has got to be like the worst winter in Abbotsford.
They're dealing with a lot of snow. I think people are trapped in their homes actually because the road crews aren't able to clear all the side streets yet, so it's a lot.
Many schools will be closed tomorrow.
I think it's great. Even if the ice is under it, I am still happy.
The same weather system is wreaking havoc in southern Alberta. So much snow has piled up in Calgary, the city is putting a parking ban in effect. It's the first time in 3 years. Residents are preparing for a long commute tomorrow morning.
It's going to be messy. It's going to take forever, that's for sure.
Forever is how it's felt for many in New Brunswick who spent 12 days in frigid temperatures without power. At one point, more than 130,000 customers were in the dark. The last few were reconnected today. Relieved power crews are now taking a break.
Good. I'm going to sleep a few days now.
Back in BC, a snowfall warning is still in effect. For many Vancouverites, February is usually a time to boast about flowers blooming. We're used to watching the rest of the country experience a real winter, but this year the cherry blossoms are covered in ice and snow until at least the end of the week, when all of this is expected to turn to rain. Val Brach, CBC News, Vancouver.
A flash of temper today cost Canada at the Davis Cup. Denis Shapovalov handed victory to his British opponent when he launched a ball in anger.
Oh, he lets that fly and
It hit the chair umpire in the left eye. Shapovalov was issued an immediate default. The umpire was taken to hospital for a checkup, but not before the 17-year-old sought him out to apologize. Straight ahead on our Sunday Talk, anti-Muslim messages in Canada. Are they on the rise? And what should be done about it? Time now for the Sunday Talk, where we tap into the debate of the week. This week, online hate in Quebec and the rest of the country. How bad is it, and can or should it be controlled? After the Quebec mosque attack, local talk radio shows were implicated for stoking hate. They're known as radio poubelle, or trash radio.
On n'a pas choisi les bons immigrants, ça prend plus d'Asiatiques et moins d'Arabes.
Freedom of expression is celebrated, and sometimes conversations that target Muslims result.
Quebec Blood Services, are they going to identify the blood that came from a Muslim? Because me, as a civilized person, as a non-Muslim, I'm not interested in receiving that blood.
So what about the rest of the country? We made inquiries and couldn't find anything at that level. But online, a different story, where some Canadians are known to frequent white power sites like Stormfront. Then there's The Rebel, a website run by Ezra Levant.
What if they're just radical, anti-Canada hate-mongers who don't share our values and want to import a bit of Syria to Canada?
Come here once a year with the sign.
It's been accused of spreading false information and encouraging racism. In an email to subscribers after the mosque shooting and after police said the second suspect, a Muslim, was really just a witness, the Rebel kept asking, what's going on here? Did a Muslim attack a mosque? And then asked for donations to get to the bottom of the story.
Because we're going to continue to ask the tough questions that the mainstream media simply will not.
High-profile sites like Reddit and 4chan are often platforms for anti-immigrant views. This week, 2 alt-right threads were shut down, sparking some outrage as a violation of free speech. I'm joined by our panelists. Elamine Abdelmahmoud is social media editor at BuzzFeed Canada. Jonathan Kay is editor-in-chief at Walrus Magazine. And Tasha Carradine is a radio talk show host in Toronto. So I want to start with you, Elamine, on this. Quite a week. You're a Muslim, you're on social media, quite a presence there. What was this week like for you, and what were you seeing?
I think it was a really tough week in terms of seeing everything that was happening on social media. On the one end, you had so many positive messages of support, very loving messages that are being sent out. And on the other end, a lot of hate. You know, the hate continues to sort of exist online because that's where it lives. So, you know, for me, someone who's on Twitter 24/7, I was getting entirely like the mix of both of those things.
How bad is it that you normally see?
The hate is bad. The hate is really, you know, it's exactly as bad as, you know, we say it is, because online, we haven't really figured out the rules of online public space. So, you know, Twitter, Facebook, they're yet to kind of figure out how to police those spaces quite well.
So, Tasha, you have a lot of people call into your show. You hear from people all the time. What do you hear? I mean, we were doing a survey across the country, couldn't find a lot of extremist stuff like you find online. What's your sense? What are you hearing?
I don't really hear the extremist stuff that you were referring to in Quebec City, the clip that you played. We do get callers, a lot of callers who, for example, will support Donald Trump. They may have anti-Islamist views. That does come up, but it's not to the point where they denigrate people like that. You do see that a lot online, however, and people have those places they choose to go because they know they find other people who think like them, and that is the internet has democratized information, but it's also unfortunately unleashed spaces where people feel free to hate and possibly also transgress hate laws. That's something we have to always keep in mind. Those laws are there to protect us against this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
What's your sense, John, I guess particularly online? How much hate is there?
When I go online, it actually makes me realize how out of touch I am. Because if you go online, it's true, there's all kinds of hate sites. On the other hand, I work in an environment at a magazine where, among my colleagues, if you use the wrong kind of pronoun to describe someone, you're corrected very quickly. And we're extremely politically correct. And so I don't know where the reality of Canada is between Twitter, where it can really be a cesspool, and is not representative of society at large because just there's a concentration of hatred there, and some of the workplaces, including my workplace, where often we are hyper polite about our conversation, we're outraged by things that fall well short of hate speech. It's hard to say where actually mainstream Canada is. I think probably the best estimate you get sometimes is AM radio, call-in radio, and I think Tasha has a good perspective where people are saying what they think. It's not the cesspool of Twitter, but it is sort of the unvarnished opinion. And we saw in the promo segment, it can be very, very disturbing.
So What do you do? Like, how, do you screen people? How do you figure that out?
I don't have to do that part. My producer does. People who will call in will talk first to a producer who will ask them what they're going to say on the air. And most of the times, people are genuine. They will say what they say. And if
so, where's the line? How do you know?
The line would
what's
be,
free speech and what's hateful?
Hate speech is definitely a line. If people are going to say things like attacking or calling for people for violence or any of that kind of nature, obviously they will not be on the air. If it's felt that it violates the standards of the station too, we also will not put it on. And you know, we're not a public space. We are a private station. We can decide who goes on and who does not. And my screener will simply not put those people on, or will let me know, you know, don't. This person will say this, not appropriate.
What do you do at BuzzFeed, for example?
I think we have, whenever we notice hate online on our boards, we absolutely immediately take it down. We don't necessarily have teams that are dedicated to that 24/7. We have a community team that does kind of manage to sweep that throughout the day. But for the most part, like we have a zero tolerance policy for sure.
And where is the line? Like, how should you? I'm sure it's not nice to read some of those things, but should those people be shut down if they're not breaking the law? If they're not,
you know, to be honest, I'm one of those people who have never believed that freedom of expression was absolute in the first place. You know, we've always had limitations to it, civil society limitations to it, hate law, you know, limitations to it. So for me, I'm fairly comfortable.
If I could just jump in there, because I'm a little older, and I remember back in the 80s and 90s when people were debating hate speech laws here in Canada, it was Section 319 of our criminal code, our human rights law, and it was always understood that hate speech was kind of like this very narrow fringe segment of speech. You know, it was like less than 1% of speech, and that's what we were censoring. The surreal and disturbing thing about this period where we're living in is that if you go on your average Donald Trump website, you will see things that are completely hateful. And Donald Trump himself, the current president of the United States, said things during his campaign that would probably get you expelled from a university campus. So it's this weird period where hate speech has kind of become normalized.
But that's because the internet didn't exist in the 80s. And I remember the 80s as well, and I remember those debates. And I think the difference, again, is that the forum for people to reach out and feel okay saying things like that, partly because of anonymity on the internet, but also because you can reach a community around the world. You know, some of the websites you reference, for example, Rebel Media, their audience is international. It's not just Canadian. So as a result, people feel emboldened to express those opinions, and then they feel emboldened to say them in public as well.
And I'm interested in this one particular line because these are literal Nazis we're talking about, you know, and for me, like, if you can't draw that line somewhere right around where Nazism begins, you can't draw it anywhere. So I'm fairly comfortable saying that.
You mean on Reddit?
That's right, that's right, exactly. Nazis is where I draw the line in terms of not allowing them to have a space.
But it's also a mix of this hate, but there's also a commercial phenomenon. Because a lot of these sites, will take, you know, InfoWars, which is run by an American conspiracy theorist named Alex Jones. You know, the nuttier and the more hateful the post, often the more people will pay for ads because it's getting more eyeballs. And also, in the case of the Rebel, sometimes if you write something that draws in Islamophobes, you will also draw in money because people will say, oh, this is the kind of story that the conventional media isn't covering, so we're going to give the Rebel money to produce more stories like this.
It's an incentive.
Yeah.
But isn't there an obligation to tell the truth, like that the original suspect is now a witness? And
well, I hate to say this, but people have their own truths, and people will go to sites that tell them what they're ready to believe. That's what I mean. Is people in their minds will say, I believe this, and they will go to a place on the internet, a site that will reinforce that pre-existing belief about Muslims, about the world, about whatever it is. And the problem is that policing that, I have a problem with the government saying you cannot say that. You cannot say unless it transgresses hate speech laws, because I do believe freedom of expression is a very dear thing. But when you make money off hate, when hate becomes commercial, which these sites, like you said, pull in advertising clicks, false news, a lot of it during the last election was for people making money. They weren't even political. They were sitting in their basements in Macedonia making up stories.
I guess the issue is that it's being presented as journalism, we're in this world of alternative facts.
That's right.
It's not.
So is there a line there that when you are actually misleading people that... I don't know what's wrong.
By the way, I should say, it's in defense of Rebel Media and Ezra Levant.
Why?
Ezra Levant, actually, it's interesting, he said this at trial, that he doesn't consider himself a journalist full stop. He considers himself an activist. Sometimes he describes himself as an activist.
But he says he's getting to the truth.
Well, he says he's getting to the truth, and the people who go to his site believe that there is some truth that you and I are hiding from them.
Exactly.
And so it's an inherently conspiratorial point of view that if they turn on CBC, they're not going to get the whole truth, that we're in some kind of conspiracy to hide the fact that, for instance, in Quebec City, there's a story that perhaps involves Muslims that we're not reporting because we're so politically correct.
You know what? There was a former CSIS agent on CBC, I can't remember his name, earlier this week, who said that places like Radio Poubelle, like those trash radio stations, have some blood on their hands for propagating the stuff that they do, like the exaggerated things that they do. And I wonder, very seriously, if all of this fake news is also possibly responsible for some of this, for stoking the hate that drove someone like Bissonnette.
This is the problem: is people buy it. People will. Fake news makes money until the so-called mainstream media finds a way to make actual truth make money. We are going to be facing a very uphill battle for those eyeballs, and people who go to the sensational sites for clickbait and those kinds of things will be encouraging by their consumption. So really, it's the consumer of news also who has to take a pause and say, no, I'm not going to buy that. I'm not going to pay you for disseminating
But it's very difficult because it's not just hate; it's also fear.
Yes,
and
opinion.
In Toronto on Friday, the Toronto Sun had its big front page was "Terror at Our Door." And it was about a legitimate existing 2016 document which talked about all the radicals and extremists, as they were described, who came into Canada. Now, the news story was actually legitimate, but the headline, you know, a couple of days after this Quebec City attack that said, "Terror at Our Door," was basically saying, everybody freak out. You're about to get bombed.
Well, and there's all these parallels within the States, the Bowling Green Massacre by Kellyanne Conway, a massacre that never happened.
So, I mean, there is something in human nature that we all think that there is someone unlike us who's in our closet who's just going to come out and kill us. And the media will get clicks and they'll get people to buy their newspapers if they stoke that fear.
We're almost out of time. I just want to bring it back to something that you mentioned at the top. I mean, social media may stoke fear and hatred, but it's also seemingly bringing people together. Were you, what did you think of all of these efforts? We've got lawyers out at the airport trying to help refugees and so on now.
That was a heartening bit, you know, is that I think people are beginning to combat the hate on social media quite aggressively and quite openly. I think before, a lot of people just used to continue to be the victims of it or just be silent. But now, especially in the wake of the Quebec attack, like I saw so many people tweeting just the most amazing things during the funeral that was televised. So, you know, this is a nice moment on the internet.
Well, it was quite a week. Thanks to all of you, mainstream media types mostly. Up next, a journalist gets to know a group that says it guards against Islamic extremism.
I think one thing that really struck me about my time in Quebec City looking at this specific group was just how much that climate of anti-Islam was growing.
The soldiers of Odin say they aren't racist. You can judge for yourself by the company they keep. Hate is a key word in a new Canadian conversation about the rise of the extreme right in this country. The Soldiers of Odin call themselves a community organization. The group says it's preserving so-called Canadian values. But recently, journalist Ben Maku of Vice News explored the soldiers' fuzzy line between nationalist pride and racist rhetoric. My conversation with him in a moment, but first, some background. The suspect in the Quebec City mosque attack is alleged to have expressed support for far-right ideologies. Similar voices are becoming more active in Canada. The Soldiers of Odin is one of them. The organization first sprang up in Finland in 2015. It was in response to the influx of refugees heading to Europe.
We'll be coming to the end, we'll meet up again, we'll walk up to the next one, do the same thing, come in the other direction.
The group patrols the streets, it says, to protect local citizens. But others say the Soldiers of Odin is really just anti-immigrant. There are now several chapters across Canada, one of them in Quebec City. A Vice journalist spent some time with them recently. Ben Maku was there when the Soldiers of Odin joined known far-right groups in a so-called anti-radical Islam protest outside Quebec's National Assembly. I sat down with Maku earlier in Toronto. Ben, so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
That's quite the documentary.
Thank you.
And it starts in Quebec City, which is where we just saw this horrible shooting in the mosque. What did you think when you saw that?
Well, I think one thing that really struck me about my time in Quebec City looking at this specific group was just how much that climate of anti-Islam was growing. And at this particular rally that was featured in the documentary, it's an anti-radical Islam rally. And it became pretty clear that it wasn't anti-radical Islam, it was just anti-Islam.
You know, they say that they're helping old ladies and shoveling snow and so on. And they are, it seems. Mm-hmm. But this patrolling Muslim neighborhoods, what's the goal there? Like, do they explain why they're doing that?
Judging by a lot of their message boards and the people I spoke with, they are legitimately, to their minds, very afraid of the Muslim community coming and altering their society. They're so deeply afraid of Sharia law. To them, it's a show of force, I think. I think it could be nothing else. I mean, this is similar to the way a lot of political groups have operated in the past. You know, wearing certain insignias, wearing certain colored shirts, and going into neighborhoods that you don't like or that you don't agree with, and showing your presence. And I think that's what it is, if we're really boiling it down, because logically, why would you go to a Muslim neighborhood in Quebec, or any neighborhood in Quebec for that matter, Quebec City that is, when this is a city that has historically low crime rates? This is not a city in disarray or burning. This is a pretty beautiful city. So why are you doing it? Why are you going to that specific community in particular? To help them? I mean...
What was the thing that was the most alarming in both BC and in Quebec City?
Two things. One, you know, my grandfather's Polish, fought in the Polish army, fought the Nazis. And I have a problem with neo-Nazism, and I have a problem with Nazism, just like I think most Canadians. And to see this group, when I ask their leaders, we're openly coordinating with a group like Atalante that has connections to that kind of thinking, that I found very alarming.
Who is Atalante?
Atalante's a right-wing extremist group. A lot of their members are connected to neo-Nazism and skinhead thinking. I know that right now openly they say they're not, but it's well documented that this group is involved in some very far-right thinking. I mean, it doesn't take your imagination to look at their symbol. There's a thunderbolt, and it looks a lot like an SS thunderbolt.
Atalante, est-ce qu'il vient ici? Ils m'ont appelé tantôt, ils vont me rappeler, ils devaient venir, mais ils vont venir, c'est sûr, dans la journée, mais exactement, mais ceux qui viennent le matin, je ne le savais pas. Ah, d'accord. Ils m'appellent. Sérieux? Hey, Raph.
Dave's talking to Atalante, right-wing extremists who take the protest to the next level. Some of their members have been convicted of violent attacks in the past.
Si Atalante s'arrête ici, eux autres vont sauver la course.
So to me, that's when I thought this is a little bit more connected and organized than I thought it was. The second one was when I actually put this to one of their leaders. I said, do you realize, and I laid out all the things I've been saying to you, do you realize when you do this, it doesn't take much for me to say, like, you are very much connected to these far-right neo-Nazi thinking.
Why do you continue to make it so clear for someone like me to draw parallels to those exact same types of groups and then say, no, we're not racists?
Well, that's the thing. We aren't. Like, we're definitely not racist.
It wasn't so long ago that there were groups like that in Canada, the United States, that if they were out saying these things, they would be immediately shut down by the public. And you haven't seen that with the Soldiers of Odin.
So what do you think's going on that so many people are joining and that they seem to be prospering?
I think there's a big response right now, and I don't want to wade too much into the American presidential election, but I think there's definitely a response right now to political correctness and liberalism. And I think that you have people who have right-wing perspectives that are being alienated by it, thinking that they're being demonized or made the enemy. And I think that pushes people to the fringe. But at the same time, you also have ISIS and these groups that are committing horrible acts of terrorism, and they're searing into people's minds. One thing I kept hearing, why did I join the Soldiers of Odin? People said, well, I kept seeing, these massacres in the Middle East. I saw women being beheaded and these videos. And it was interesting because I used to hear and used to read about members of Islamic State, young members, looking at Abu Ghraib and being disgusted by it and doing something about it. And I think you're seeing similar reactions to, albeit smaller, to ISIS and all these attacks that are happening abroad. It's shocking. It's horrific. And I think mixed in with the refugee crisis, where we're seeing more immigrants from the Middle East, there's an ability to be afraid of them.
A number of the soldiers that you talked to referred to Sharia law and that they had to get organized to stop Sharia law from coming to Canada. That seems to be a pretty common thread.
It's a very common thread.
What did you think of that?
I think that I've been looking at this kind of thing for a very long time from the perspective of a national security reporter, and the threat of that is very minimal. And the interesting thing is a lot of them were quoting news sources saying, no, I saw videos of refugees saying, I'm coming to Canada and I'm going to push for Sharia law.
It's a big issue in the alt-right groups in the United States as well, that Sharia law is coming and we have to organize to stop that.
And it's the fear of the Muslim hordes. That's almost how they describe it. And it's not something that's based, as far as my research shows, in fact.
So where is this information coming from? To them, do you think?
I don't want to say fake news, but I want to say discreditable news sources. It started with ISIS. I started seeing people quoting these very bizarre news sources, not recognizing them. And then since the election, it's just gone up. I mean, we saw on Sunday there was fake news sources promoting that the attack on the Quebec mosque was done by 2 Syrian refugees. This was gaining momentum, so much so that the spokesperson of the president actually said, this is why we're shutting down refugees into the United States. It doesn't take much.
We condemn this attack in the strongest possible terms. It's a terrible reminder of why we must remain vigilant and why the president is taking steps to be proactive rather than reactive when it comes to our nation's safety and security.
Did you get any feedback from the Soldiers of Odin after?
I don't think they're happy about it.
What have you heard?
I think I misrepresented them. I think they think that I'm a leftist, or at least that's what they've been saying. I mean, you know as well as I do, when you're in the occupation of journalism, I mean, you're not really here to make friends, you're here to report stories. We're all adults, we're all involved in this, in the world, in society. When I come to talk to you as a journalist and I never misrepresented who I was or what I did, it's on the record, we're talking about this stuff. You're on camera.
Thanks so much, Ben.
Thanks for having me.
Ben Maku is also a central figure in a case about journalistic freedom in Canada. Last year, a judge upheld an RCMP order requiring Maku to hand over records of his interviews with a suspected terrorist. He could face prison for refusing. Tomorrow, lawyers for Vice News will be on the Ontario Court of Appeal asking that order be overturned. The CBC is one of the interveners in the case as part of a media coalition. Now, stay tuned for the story behind an incredible journey to Canada. They left Jordan as a family of 6, but now they are 7. What happened in between is pretty amazing. Plus.
But Lord, you've got to look at it that we made an awful lot of money. And we stayed in and we knew the risks.
Fortunes were made and then lost in a record-breaking fraud. As Hollywood looks back, so do we. The Alcanacs can't yet speak English, but their gratitude is clear. For these Syrian refugees, just to get to their new home of Fort McMurray, Alberta, meant keeping a tiny secret. CBC's David Thurton explains.
So this is a story that has generated a lot of interest from Canadians. The church behind me sponsored a family of 6 refugees. They knew that the mother was pregnant. They thought she'd give birth about a month after her arrival. Turns out her water broke in transit here to Canada, and she didn't tell the church until a couple of hours after she arrived. They rushed her to hospital. She gave birth to a healthy baby boy, Iyad. The family appeared at church to meet the congregation that is sponsoring them, and they also gave their first interview to the media. The mother said she did all that. She sat silent in pain while her water was broken because she wants a better life for her newborn boy in Canada. The church is happy and excited to welcome what was a family of 6 and now is a family of 7. They have set up a fundraising campaign to help this family adjust to their new life here in Canada. David Thornton, CBC News, Fort McMurray.
Coming up, Canada's biggest mining fraud 20 years later.
Look, we got a gold mine. We got a gold mine.
We gotta go mine! We gotta go mine! As Hollywood tackles the Briac scandal, we'll show you how it really unfolded. Matthew McConaughey is starring in a film about a Canadian mining fraud that broke all records. But get this, the movie Gold completely ignores the Canadian roots of this scandal. So let's set the record straight with tonight's Look Back.
There's gold fever on the streets of St. Paul. Everyone's talking about Briac, a small Calgary mining company that struck gold half a world away. And even though the mines are in Indonesia, a lot of the wealth is right here in St. Paul. So do you know any new millionaires?
A few.
Traders at the Alberta Stock Exchange say they've never seen anything like it. From a low of $1.90 to a high of $170 in just 1 year.
Just 5 weeks ago, Bre-X's exploration chief predicted the mine could yield up to 200 million ounces of gold. But last week, the first signs of potential trouble. Bre-X geologist Michael de Guzman fell from a helicopter on a flight to the mining site. Some say it was suicide. Now, the Indonesian government has put the project on hold after Bre-X revealed yesterday the size of the find may have been overstated.
Wholesale panic today over the Bre-X affair. Canadians dumped the gold company's stock as fast as they could. Share prices crashed and Bre-X struggled in vain to stop the damage. All this after word the company's supposedly gigantic gold strike could be worthless.
Security guards have been patrolling the building since early last night when the company released the independent audit by Strathcona Minerals, calling Bre-X the largest fraud in international mining history. Bre-X employees continued to work even as the world speculated about how such a massive salting scheme could have been carried out. The Wall Street Journal ran a front-page story talking about a secret storage site where workers added mysterious powders to already crushed rock before sending it on to the assay labs. These are pictures of that alleged site. The sign says, if you have no business here, go away.
Around $400 million in market capitalization has been lost in the first 4 minutes of trading. That money's gone.
How much are Bre-X shares worth today? About as much as a glass of Kool-Aid.
Wow. That's the National for this Sunday night. For news at any hour, you can always go to our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm Wendy Mesley. Thanks for watching.